China aspires to position itself as the world's foremost economic and military superpower by 2049. However, a significant challenge stands in its way: geographical constraints. Positioned behind a series of island nations that oppose its foreign policy goals, China faces potential staging areas that could disrupt its trade routes and retaliate against its military forces near the Chinese shoreline. Due to this geopolitical vulnerability, China has heavily invested in its missile arsenal and naval expansion. It has grown its naval fleet, now boasting 3 aircraft carriers with a 4th underway. Although China has yet to attempt breaking free from its confinement within the first island chain, it has demonstrated its enhanced naval capabilities by militarizing and fortifying the sea lanes within this region. China's heightened militarization in the area has led the United States to react with freedom of navigation operations, FONOPS, aimed at challenging its territorial assertions and hindering its military from attaining local dominance. But what if one of these FONOPS escalated disastrously, leading to a naval confrontation in the South China Sea? In such a scenario, a crucial question arises: what would an attempt by the US Navy to sink a Chinese aircraft carrier entail? Consider the following situation. Imagine it's the winter of 2025. Tensions remain high in the South China Sea as Chinese vessels interfere with Filipino ships within the Philippines' internationally recognized Exclusive Economic Zone, EEZ, as defined by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS. Collisions between Chinese and Filipino vessels have grown more frequent over the past year as China tries to intimidate the Philippines out of these waters. The situation might begin innocently enough. A Filipino fishing boat approaches the Scarborough Shoal, which, under UNCLOS, is part of the Philippines' EEZ. However, China seized control of the shoal in 2012 and has maintained dominance ever since. Chinese ships have previously rammed Filipino boats attempting to enter the shoal's lagoon, but this time, their aggression is notably intense. 2 Chinese Coast Guard vessels sink the Filipino fishing boat, triggering a response from the Philippines Navy. In reaction to this event, the People's Liberation Army Navy, PLAN, increases its patrols in disputed areas with Manila. The Philippines maintains a mutual defense treaty with the United States and hosts American military installations. To demonstrate its commitment to defending its ally, the US Navy conducts a FONOP that skirts the highly contested Spratly Islands. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer from the US fleet leads this maneuver. Predictably, the plan monitors the American destroyer, which approaches within 10 miles of China's artificial islands. 2 Type 054A frigates, already on alert due to previous tensions with the Philippines, attempt to block the US vessel, resulting in an unavoidable collision. Both nations accuse each other of fault. China alleges that the United States has infringed upon its territorial sovereignty, while Washington asserts that Beijing has violated international maritime regulations. With mounting hostility in the region, China deploys one of its aircraft carriers along with its accompanying battle group to the area. However, the United States also dispatches one of its carrier groups to the vicinity. Submarines from both nations are lurking beneath the surface. The escalating militarization of this confined region increases the likelihood of further incidents, and soon, one occurs. Under international maritime law, military ships are prohibited from engaging in reconnaissance, signal jamming, or weapon usage. Violating these rules strips them of the innocent passage status. The US Navy, committed to upholding international law and avoiding a broader conflict, adheres to these restrictions, even though it makes them susceptible. China, while also desiring to avoid confrontation, pursues a different objective: undermining international law and tightening its control over the South China Sea by coercing others out of the territories it claims under the 9-dash line. The Chinese carrier seeks to project power by dispatching a squadron of J-15 Flying Sharks. Despite this display of strength, the US Navy remains alert. The fortified islands also deploy aircraft for support, but the advanced radar and early warning systems of the American carrier group effectively monitor these movements. As Chinese aircraft approach perilously close to some US Navy vessels, their maneuvers are reckless and lack the sophistication of their American counterparts, who methodically prepare to counter any threats. Equipped with superior defensive systems, the US ships maintain their positions, compelling the Chinese to rethink their tactics. The US Navy reacts by scrambling additional F/A-18 Super Hornets alongside the ones already on patrol. Unfortunately, as has happened before, the aircraft come dangerously close to each other, resulting in another collision. One Chinese pilot, panicked by the situation, launches a missile fearing his own vulnerability. This action triggers an exchange of air-to-air combat between the two sides, escalating the conflict further. One of the Chinese ships becomes involved, launching a salvo of HQ-16A surface-to-air missiles at the Super Hornets in flight. These missiles have an operational range of 40 kilometers and travel at Mach 3. While not as capable as the US Navy's RIM 162 ESSM missiles, which can target enemies 50 kilometers away at Mach 4 speeds, the HQ-16 is contribute to the chaos by surprising some Super Hornets, destroying several and forcing others to retreat as more enemy aircraft arrive. The Super Hornets, momentarily engaged in air-to-air battles, strategically avoid the Chinese ships, aware that reinforcements equipped with ship-destroying capabilities are approaching. The US Navy's capacity to swiftly adapt ensures that any surface threats will be efficiently neutralized once the necessary assets arrive. The US Navy now faces an imperative objective. It must eliminate the planned aircraft carrier before casualties escalate. While diplomats in Washington and Beijing are likely attempting to de-escalate the situation, the carrier group's commander cannot rely on diplomatic efforts occurring rapidly enough. Protecting the Navy's personnel becomes the highest priority. Fortunately, the American carrier would have anticipated such a scenario given the ongoing tensions. Additional Hornets would be on standby, armed with RGM-84 Harpoon anti-ship missiles. 2 squadrons of these would be prepared for action, with another squadron ready to arm themselves with anti-air or anti-ship missiles within an hour. The Hornets would engage the leading Chinese ships with their Harpoon missiles, which travel close to the waterline at subsonic speeds. Some would be intercepted by Chinese ship-based SAMs, but the volume of Harpoons launched would overwhelm defenses, resulting in several hits on ships' waterlines and the sinking of at least one forward-deployed Chinese vessel. Meanwhile, the remaining J-15s would be engaged or forced to retreat by the Super Hornets, which now outnumber them significantly. The squadron would advance northward toward the Chinese carrier. China responds by deploying a large squadron of its aircraft, including J-15s and land-based planes like the J-11 and J-16, attempting to counter the superior US aircraft. These planes are equipped with the Place-15 missile, which, despite its long range and high speed, lacks the versatility of the US AMRAAM. Although the AIM-260J ATM is not yet widely available, American pilots' superior tactics and the US Navy's advanced electronic warfare systems mitigate much of the Place-15's potential edge, reducing it to mere parity at best. Upon detecting the Super Hornets, the Chinese aircraft open fire. American pilots face a dilemma. Logically, they should execute immediate evasive maneuvers. However, these highly trained naval aviators recognize the need to maximize their missiles' kinetic energy for optimal effectiveness. Consequently, they likely approach as closely as possible, fire their missiles, and then perform evasive actions. The Place-15 missiles exhibit vulnerabilities that experienced American pilots quickly exploit. Long-range shots cause the missiles to lose significant energy, and combined with tactical maneuvers by US pilots, the Place-15s become ineffective. The Super Hornets' advanced countermeasures and thicker air at low altitudes further diminish the missile's performance. As a result, American aircraft sustain minimal damage, while the less coordinated Chinese forces suffer substantial losses during the ensuing battle. Many Chinese aircraft are equipped with the Place-12 missile, which entered service in 2005 when China was still considered a military backwater. This missile has a range between 70 and 100 kilometers. Super Hornets armed with AMRAAMs can outrange these missiles, making it unlikely that any would be destroyed in return. Additionally, the Super Hornets possess superior radar systems. Many Chinese aircraft would likely remain unaware of being targeted until the AMRAAM's radar activates near the end of their flight path. However, an initial confrontation like this would not result in the destruction of the Chinese aircraft carrier due to insufficient momentum. As the initial battle continues, Chinese fighter jets are launched from Hainan Island to support their forces, and H-6 bombers take off to add firepower aimed at destroying the American carrier. This becomes a vulnerable point for the US Navy, as many Super Hornets would have expended their payloads and need to return to the carrier for rearming. Nevertheless, a few would stay aloft around the disputed airspace to maintain a forward presence. As previous aircraft return to rearm, the remaining Super Hornets on the carrier are rearmed and prepared for launch. Each is equipped with at least 9 air-to-air missiles and must take off before Chinese aircraft close in too much. E-2D Hawkeye AWACS aircraft in the region would have alerted the carrier's captain to the incoming large number of enemy planes, increasing the urgency to rearm and launch the Super Hornets. These jets ascend and move as far from the American carrier as possible to keep the Chinese aircraft at bay. Unfortunately, the Hawkeye is soon destroyed by Chinese missiles, forcing American aircraft to rely on other intelligence sources. The squadrons from the American carrier engaging Chinese land and sea-based aircraft become the largest air battle of modern times, with missiles flying in a historic volley. Fortunately, even without the Hawkeye, American aircraft remain well informed. The F/A-18s are equipped with the APG-79 radar, an AESA system that allows tracking and targeting multiple threats simultaneously. Chinese aircraft radars are at a disadvantage. While China has made strides in radar technology, many of their older planes, like the J-11, are present in this conflict. Not all are armed with the Place 15, some carry the outdated Place 12. Consequently, more Chinese planes become casualties compared to their American counterparts. However, this initial clash does not result in the loss of the Chinese aircraft carrier due to insufficient momentum. As the battle rages on, Chinese fighter jets from Hainan and H-6 bombers bolster their forces. The US carrier faces vulnerability as Super Hornets return to rearm, but remaining aircraft equipped with at least 9 air-to-air missiles are ready to launch. E-2D Hawkeye AWACS aircraft provide critical early warnings until they are destroyed by Chinese missiles, leaving American aircraft to depend on other detection methods. The ensuing air battle becomes unprecedented in scale, with a high volume of missiles in play. Despite the loss of the Hawkeye, the advanced APG-79 radar in F/A-18s ensures that American aircraft maintain situational awareness, while Chinese radars lag behind, resulting in higher Chinese aircraft losses. As the battle progresses, the tyranny of distance becomes a significant factor. China's proximity to its homeland grants shorter supply lines and the ability to deploy more assets swiftly. In contrast, the United States must transport supplies and reinforcements across vast distances, limiting its immediate response capabilities. This geographic disadvantage hampers the US Navy's operational flexibility in the confined theater of conflict. Chinese surface ships, primarily consisting of smaller frigates and corvettes, remain less survivable and less heavily armed compared to their American counterparts. Despite China's home field advantage and extensive arsenal of land and ship-based ballistic and cruise missiles, the US Navy's superiority in stealth and submarine warfare provides it with an edge. However, China's advancements in nuclear submarines and hypersonic glide vehicles continue to escalate the arms race in the Indo-Pacific region. In this hypothetical scenario, the Chinese aircraft carrier is ultimately sunk alongside numerous other planned ships, but not without significant losses on the American side, including a heavily damaged carrier that the US Navy hopes to salvage. While the United States currently holds advantages in stealth and submarine capabilities, China's ongoing military advancements pose increasing challenges. The scenario underscores that, despite China's rapid military growth, it still faces substantial obstacles in matching the United States in a direct naval confrontation. The balance of power remains delicate, with both nations continuing to expand and modernize their forces in the contested waters of the South